You know how we do when we have funky music in our ear. We get to writing, ain't no fighting, we just in there trying to win. Ooh yeah, la-di-da, we grinding hard. Ooh yeah, we not gonna stop. Yeah, 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 yeah. Too late to turn back now. I got work to do. On a mission, by my business, I'm pushing through.
We're back. Once again, I'm Nicholas Austin Holiday, and this is the Top 25, sponsored by C-Vibe, Clear Video Internet Broadcasting. So the first game, I've already talked about it, which was the Florida State versus Louisville game, so I'm not going to get into that one again. But we'll go through some of the other top 25 teams and see how they fared on Saturday. So Oklahoma blew out Iowa State 59-14. Oklahoma has one of those teams where one minute you think they could be in the top 4 in the playoff, and then the next week they lose a game that they should win. I still think Oklahoma has a very good team. Bob Stoops has built that team up and turned them into a national contender, but they're still dropping games that they shouldn't drop. They're pretty much out of the playoff picture this year, unfortunately, but we'll see how next year works out for them. But like I say, I'm very impressed with some of the recruits Oklahoma's bringing in, and they're showing through some of the games they show that they can play with some of the best in the country, even going back to last season when they beat Alabama in their bowl game. So we'll see how things work out for Oklahoma, but unfortunately right now they're out of the playoff picture. Temple defeats East Carolina 20-10. This is number 23 ranked East Carolina. Nobody saw this win. Nobody saw this game coming. East Carolina has looked very good from putting up, 70 points on a North Carolina team to losing to Temple 20-10. But you know what? That's what happens when you have a bunch of turnovers. I believe East Carolina had 5 turnovers in this game. You can't have that many turnovers and expect to win a game. Temple did what they had to do. They forced turnovers and they took advantage of the turnovers. And you know what? They came away with the win. Maybe next time East Carolina will be a little bit more cautious with the ball. Maybe they went into the game a little bit with a big head thinking, okay, we have this win. But in the end, it didn't work out. A great win by Temple. Duke and Pittsburgh. What a riveting game. Final score 51-48, 2 overtimes. Pittsburgh had a chance to win the game. But of course, when you have a kicker whose last name is Blewett, and he misses a kick, you say he blew it. But they had their chance. The game went back and forth. Duke won with a big game. Duke continues to lead the ACC Coastal right now to get a chance to play in the ACC Championship. This is the same Duke that was able to play in the ACC Championship last year too. They got blown out by Florida State, but they made it there, which is very impressive for a Duke team. But you know what? David Cutcliffe, the coach of Duke, he's a very good coach. He's the same coach that coached the Manning brothers. So Duke is always going to have a well-coached football team. Right now they're in the driver's seat. We'll see how things work out. Georgia Tech still has a chance. UM still has a chance. But if Duke wins out, they'll be playing the ACC Championship game again. And it looks like whoever comes from the Coastal will be playing Florida State out of the Atlantic. TCU beats West Virginia by 1 point, 31-30. This is another heartbreaking game. West Virginia had TCU on the ropes, and they had a really big chance to be the top 10 team. But in the end, they weren't able to pull it out. TCU was able to kick a field goal at the end of regulation to win the game. That's unfortunate. West Virginia has looked so good this year. Clint Trickett is looking really, really good. And they just have a solid team around them. Dana Holgorsen is really bringing in the talent that he needs to run his system. But unfortunately, they couldn't come out with the win. But you know what? West Virginia is not the type of team that you want to run into. If they end the season with maybe 4 losses, maybe 5 losses, we'll see how that works out. Whoever they end up with in a bowl game, they're probably going to beat up on them. West Virginia looks really good. And you don't want to pair them with another kind of average 4-loss team because West Virginia is not an average team. They played a tough schedule so far this year, but they're not an average team. And I think they're going to really open a lot of eyes in their bowl game with whoever they end up playing. Unfortunately, Clint Trickett, he's a senior, so he'll be gone, but I really want to see what they're going to look like next year and if they can keep this momentum going. I already talked on Florida and Georgia. Florida put up 2 million yards rushing. Georgia couldn't stop them, so we won't talk about that again. But let me say, the future looks bright for Georgia. The freshman Nick Chubb, he looked really good. Had 150 yards rushing. He had a costly fumble, but you know what? If he can do that, the future looks really bright. They have Sonny Michel. Gurley will be going to the NFL after this year, but the future looks bright for Georgia if their running game can keep on going. They keep bringing in these stud running backs, and they keep just throwing them out wave after wave after wave. So they lost this game. Nick Chubb had a good game. Overall, Georgia didn't have a really good game. Their defense had a terrible game, but the future looks bright for them. Nebraska and Purdue played. Nebraska defeated Purdue 35-14. The big story out of this game is Nebraska's superstar running back Amir Abdullah going down with an injury. I think every Nebraska fan held their breath. The coaching staff, his teammates, you can't lose a player like that. Amir Abdullah is the do-it-all back. He catches out the backfield. He can do whatever he needed. He can do whatever he needs to do to help Nebraska out, and he's a great player, and that's why he's been on Heisman talks. But you know what? They say it's just pretty much a strained meniscus, and he can come back from it. Bo Pelini is saying right now that he could possibly be 100% for the next game. I don't know about that. I think that just may be a little coach's speak, but as soon as they can get him back and at 100%, the better they'll be in the long run. Kansas State destroyed Oklahoma State 48-14. Every week, Kansas State continues to impress me. There's a really good chance for them to come out of the Big 12 as a winner. Right now, it's them and TCU that are kind of running neck and neck who's going to come out of the Big 12. That'll be a very good... They have to play each other, so it's going to be a big game. But whoever comes out of that game is going to be the clear favorite to come out of the Big 12. TCU's Jake Waters, he's still looking like he's a really good player. He's really accurate. A lot of people try to compare him to Colin Klein when he was at Kansas State, but I believe he's a better pure quarterback than Colin Klein was. Colin Klein was a great athlete, but I believe Waters is a better quarterback, and he's also a really good athlete. So I really look to see how they do. Bill Snyder's a really great coach at Kansas State. So when they play TCU, Gary Patterson at TCU versus Dan Snyder at Kansas State, that's going to be two masterminds in coaching going head-to-head. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. Notre Dame defeats Navy 49-39. The game was a lot closer than people expected it to be. But you know what? Navy runs that funky triple option offense. And that offense is always hard to stop, no matter who runs it. You can take a top team, even from when Florida State played Citadel, it's hard to stop these triple option teams because you don't have enough time to prepare in a week to how to truly stop these types of offenses. You can slow them down, but they're going to get their yards. People say, oh, well, Navy or whoever rushed for, even at Georgia Tech, they rushed for 350 yards. Okay, they run the ball 1,000 times a game. What do you expect? Their teams are based off of getting rushing yards. So if you play a triple option team and they get 300 yards rushing, okay, that's normal. But it depends on those passing yards. They only have 5 passes and 25 yards. Chances are you won that game. But I'm getting off track. Let me get back. Notre Dame won the game by 10 points. Everett Golson continues to look really, really good. He accounted for a boatload of touchdowns. I believe 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns or something along those lines. Notre Dame still looks like a contender. They looked shaky. What I will say is their defense looked a little shaky. So I had them in that playoff race. I want to see how things are going to play out with them. They have a tough schedule ahead of them. They have to play USC and some other power teams out west. So I want to see how that's going to work out for them. But you came out with the win. Bottom line, you play the game, you win the game. The most important thing at the end of the day is a W in the win-loss column. Ohio State blew out Illinois 55-14. It's not much to say about that game except Ohio State killed them. Urban Meyer turned up the heat on Illinois. I don't think anybody expected them to really challenge Ohio State. Ohio State's looking really good right now. The young quarterback they have in there, JT, is looking really good. he's filling in very very nicely for Braxton Miller. We'll see if Braxton Miller comes back next year. If he does, that's going to be a really iffy quarterback battle. I think Braxton Miller might want to go ahead and take his talents to the next level if he can, because I don't know if he's going to come back next year and be able to take that starting quarterback spot. But like I say, Ohio State rolled them, no challenge, on to the next game for them. UCLA defeated number 12 Arizona. What a great game. UCLA came into the game ranked 22nd. Arizona was 12th. UCLA comes out to win 17-7. Brent Hundley looked really good in that game. UCLA made some big plays. I really feel like their defense came in and stepped it up when they needed to, and they made a lot of big plays, and they were able to come out with the win. Don't forget, UCLA was a team that in the beginning of the season was talked about as being a possible playoff team and one of the best teams in the country. Unfortunately, things haven't worked out for them that way, but they still look like a strong team, and they're going to definitely scare some of their opponents in the future. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out for them. Number 14, Arizona State. Excuse me. Number 14, Arizona State against number 17, Utah, and they win by 3 points in overtime. These overtime games in college football are pretty wild. They're always good, and I love how one team gets a chance to score, and then if they score, the other team gets a chance. I love the way it can go back and forth as long as it stays a tie. I'm not really a big fan of the NFL. You score a touchdown in overtime, whoever gets the ball first is over. I like the idea of giving both teams a chance. And I think that's what makes college so exciting when it comes to overtime is you get to keep going back and forth, and you know what? Whoever makes a big stop or a big play is the one that wins the game. Mississippi State, number 1 Mississippi State, beat an unranked Arkansas team 17-10. They struggled. Arkansas looked really good at times, but you know what? Mississippi State also looked bad at times. Dak Prescott, one of the Heisman contenders, threw a couple of interceptions, but Dak Prescott is a very good talent. He's a really, really good quarterback. He had a couple of breakdowns in that game, but he's still a really good quarterback, and he should definitely still be in the Heisman race. Arkansas, you know, they're built off of running the ball. They want to run the ball down your throat, you know, with Alex Collins in the backfield. That's their bread and butter. But you know what? Arkansas made some bad choices in this game. Arkansas had a chance right in the red zone to try to get a score. And you know what they do on 4th down? They run the ball with Alex Collins. That's a horrible call. And then you run a draw play at that. That's not what you do. Not against a defense that's as stout as Mississippi State. You have to take some chances if you want to knock off the big dog. You got to maybe run some trick plays. You got to let that quarterback drop back. You got to give your team a chance. That was a bad play call, and they still had a chance to tie the game up and take it into overtime, but their quarterback threw an interception at the end of the game. It's unfortunate, but I really think it showed some cracks in the armor for Mississippi State. I really don't think there's one true dominant team in college football this year. So it's going to be very interesting how things play out throughout the course of the season and how the playoff ends up. Because like I said, there's not one true dominant team. So I'm curious to see who's going to win it all at the end of the year. Auburn and Ole Miss pretty much had a shootout. Auburn wins 35-31. The teams went back and forth. I mean, Marshall looked good for Auburn at times. The game was just all over the place. Bo Wallace looked good at times for Ole Miss. There was a lot of high-power offense. You know, Auburn's bread and butter is just running the ball down your throat. Bo Wallace's job is to get the ball out to his playmakers and let them make plays. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate what happened to Laquan Treadwell in this game. The 4th quarter, Ole Miss is in position to win the game. They throw the ball out to Treadwell on sort of like a bubble screen. Treadwell goes upfield. Treadwell is pretty much this close from crossing the goal line and winning the game. Gets tackled from behind, gets pulled back, dislocates his ankle, breaks his leg. Horrific injury. And it's such a sad injury for such a talented player and a good kid at that. You know, you never want to see injuries like that. No matter who you're a fan of, you don't ever want to root for injuries for any fan base. Whether it's a rival fan base or just a team that you don't really watch that much or a team you don't care about. You never want to root for injuries. Don't forget, these are 18 to 22, 23-year-old kids. And they're just trying to, you know, go to college and they're trying to play football and make a living, whether it's in football or something else. So you don't ever want to root for injuries. And it's sad that that happened, and it kind of took away from such a great game. But the game was a great game. The game came down to the wire. I think Auburn's defense is really, really shaky right now. That's 2 losses in a row for Ole Miss, LSU, and now Auburn. So they're pretty much out of the playoff race. But we'll see how things play out. We wish a speedy recovery to Laquan Treadwell. Oregon blows out Stanford 45-16. Marcus Mariota propels himself even higher into the Heisman race. Right now it seems like they're trying to throw the Heisman Trophy at Marcus Mariota. Remember the last couple of years, he's been right there in the mix to win the Heisman, but things haven't worked out for him, whether it was injuries or his team losing. But that's big for Oregon to get that monkey off their back, because Mariota and Oregon have struggled with Stanford. And for them to come out and blow out Stanford the way they did, look really, really good for their team. And it shows that they can play against a physical team like Stanford and put points on the board. Don't get me wrong, Stanford's defense has been really good this year, and they were ranked really high, but their offense has been all over the place. You know, led by quarterback Kevin Hogan, who they were talking about as one of the top quarterbacks to possibly go into the draft. I don't know if that's still the case, but Stanford's offense is all over the place right now. But you know what? I think Shaw is a good coach for them, and I think he'll get them back on track in the future. But if you're able to slow down Stanford's running game, which is their bread and butter, if you're able to slow it down or stop it, they don't really have too much more they can beat you with. They lost a lot of good guys off of their team from last year, the Kevin Hogans and big-time running backs they had. So they're going to really have to try to find ways to win, because you can't just stick to one thing if it's not working for you, unfortunately. But a great win for Oregon, way to get that monkey off your back, and we'll see if Oregon's able to make it into the playoff at the end of the year. Nebraska, well, we already talked about the Nebraskas and Ohio States, so we'll wrap that up on the top 25, and we'll see what kind of action we have coming off the top 25 for next week.
You know how we do it, we have funky music in our ear. We get to writing, ain't no fighting, we just in there trying to win. Ooh yeah, la-di-da, we grinding hard. Ooh yeah, we not gonna stop. Yeah. Too late to turn back now. I got work to do on a mission, by my business. I'm pushing through, no slacking. Make it happen. We grinding hard. We grinding hard. You know how we do it, we have funky music in our ear. We get to writing, ain't no fighting, we just in there trying to win. Ooh yeah, la-di-da, we grinding hard. Ooh yeah, we not gonna stop. Yeah. Too late to turn back now. I got work to do on a mission, by my business. I'm pushing through, no slacking. Make it happen. We grinding hard. We grinding hard. You know how we do it, we have funky music in our ear. We get to writing, ain't no fighting, we just in there trying to win. Ooh yeah, la-di-da, we grinding hard. Ooh yeah, we not gonna stop. Yeah. Too late to turn back now. I got work to do on a mission, by my business. I'm pushing through,